And to you, pretty late, it is another episode with just Matt and I.
Striking late.
Very late.
Also last, but quite late. Later on the left coast. Wait, no. Later on the right coast.
Yep.
Not
Generally
later on
it works.
the left coast. But if you go, see, there's the weird thing. If you went all the way left, you would get on the right coast. That's the whole thing about a globe. It's strange.
And there you have it. You get deep thoughts here too. Don't ever say it wasn't the case. Welcome all dear listeners to Always Strikes Last with its Always Strikes Late iteration.
True ASMR, ponderous questions that are also pondering.
Indeed. Today we're bringing some thoughts to you. You know, minus Miles, of course, who is wrapping up Worlds, that's unable to join us. We're gonna have a good time. You know, catch up a little bit on what promises to be sort of the calm before the fourth edition's arrival storm on the 13th or so.
And I gotta say, I have finally hit that point where, like, I'm jonesing. I remember when, when 10th edition 40K promised to have all the, have all the news and have all the fun stuff, and I was gonna give it a really, good chance, because ninth was it drove me nuts in the worst possible way. Then I realized it wasn't just the rules, it was other things, because 10th. Anyways, but there was a serious point as they were, building up the release there, where I think everybody was just like, just give us everything, please. People were searching through Reddit, and a bunch of people. I remember I was running a tournament up in Hocklum, and the guy, Jason Bird, awesome dude, plays a lot of 40K. Didn't really understand Age of Sigmar, like a lot of the 40K players. Essentially got like a leak for everything from 10th, and they all lost their minds. They're like, this is how this is going to break the game. Yada, 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 yada. And of course, like, part of that broke the game, but the other part was like, it was sky is falling mentality while everybody's searching through Reddit posts and like spreadsheet Google Docs and stuff. And it was that point where, like, the amount of hype and disinformation hype, was at its peak, which is just like, well, please just give me the truth, right?
Exactly.
Because then I know, and I feel like we've finally hit that spot. For me, at least, I'm just like, I'm just ready. I don't need any more of this. But we got the release schedule,
So that's where it's all really fallen into place for me. I mean, I think that I definitely concur that there was this long marathon lead up where we were getting dribbles of information, especially with like the kind of Warhammer community, first articles on the ways in which the game would be different, highlight rules, like giving you all the rules, and then there kind of dives into the factions themselves, which ultimately was kind of just a question of, well, I see this thing that seems sensational, but is it sensational in the context of the game we're about to play? Or is this more just like headline generation to make sure that, that website keeps its readership up and grows a fever pitch in anticipation of the event because they want to seem like they've done something worth talking about? Well, it could be a bit of both. Could be a bit of both, but that's something which I didn't really want to participate in too early because I wanted to savor some of all that fun stuff when it came out. I've always enjoyed, cracking open the new rule book when you have an opportunity to enter a new edition, kind of soak it in and start thinking about it for myself. I mean, I don't want to overanalyze, 2/3 of the rules I've cobbled together with way too much time and attention just to find out the third I couldn't have known. It validates all whatever I was thinking about. So there's been some of that, but nevertheless, I too have gotten enough of a picture based upon the release schedule being on, so we know whether it's Game of Tides going on 13, the various Warhammer previews and some other stuff that seems to have filtered up from Games Workshop itself, that it's interesting enough to read more because I don't feel like I'm going to go down a rabbit hole in a bad way right now. Like I know that referencing one of our fine sites out there, I like to read Goonhammer. They had the pretty much early look at the faction packs, and so they were doing their own version of like a slightly deeper than what the Warhammer community did. Take on how each of them were doing, which is kind of neat because we know what the phases are going to be and how everything's going to work, and couple that with the occasional grainy image of a war scroll someone's uploaded. You can kind of start to see some cool stuff, and even I have had my brain go, that's kind of neat. I can't wait to do that, and started to idly patch together maybe some strategies or cool things that I can't wait to try at the tabletop, presuming
Mm.
that works kind of in line with what seems to be shaping up as. I think a lot of people are probably doing that. There'll be some good times come the drop of the big bucks.
Yeah, and it's interesting though, um, like the amount of just the amount of time it takes for us as like a I guess a community, or like Age of Sigmar has its own culture, right? Like each player, well, all the players in Age of Sigmar to the larger extent have
Mm-hmm.
kind of an Age of Sigmar culture that is unique to Age of Sigmar. Certain
Mm-hmm.
things they care about, certain things that are like, oh, no, certain things that we get a little bit more excited about than other game systems, right?
Oh,
And
100%.
and as like the third edition grew, right, we viewed Age of Sigmar through this kind of certain lens of, well, this is good, this is not good. Things are moving around. I really love how this role works, and everything, everything is tight now. Everything's good. Everybody's got their book. Everything's great. And then, of course, fourth edition comes in, the floor falls out, right? But we're still, for I think pretty much until maybe this week proper, or I guess maybe the weekend when like all the bigger leaks started coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Like people were still viewing the game in the lens of 3.0, and like I know we've purposefully like tried not to like overhype it because it there's rules we just don't know the interaction of, right? And like they're starting to become more and more apparent, where like when we originally saw a war scroll where like um the what is it, objective control, what are they calling that,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Age of
The
Sigmar, is
control
it
score.
OC? Yeah, control
I think
score,
it is OC. Yeah.
or just control. um like the debuffs for those are around, and people are like, well, that doesn't really seem that important, right? And then we start seeing like how much that can change now that battle tactics are actually much harder to actually attain, if some of these well, because some of these content creators that have gotten access to it have now confirmed, right? Warhammer Weekly put out a video where Venturelli put out, like, he went through a pretty good solid take of it, and I was talking with Mason of Victoria's Secrets about the
Mm-hmm.
just about how we think the game will go, and he brought up them. I listened through the video, and the the takeaways they were getting from the game, and it seems like they've had the books for a little while, were wildly different than what pretty much anybody was saying just 2 days ago of how the game would actually feel when it came out. And it's funny to me to see what certain players kind of like focus on as like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be the thing that changes, or that's going to be the thing that's crazy. And then all of a sudden we find out that what are they calling endless spells now? Um,
Oh, manifestations. That much I've
manif-
learned.
yeah, that like that now manifestations are like insanely different. They have crazy interactions, and like things are going to be so wildly different with how you play with those. Like when those stats were kind of like pushed around the peripheries, like it was like, oh, okay, but now you're seeing him in battle reports, and it's like, wow, that's potentially three free units, right? With like maybe a wizard tax. Um, and things are coming together where it's starting to look to be a very interesting beast of a game. Um, but yeah.
Totally agreed. Totally agreed. And I think that there's something you said, which I definitely feeling where that 2.0 or that well, I guess it's 3.0 brain right from this last edition is
Mhm.
strong, and all the things we sort of learned or how we're assessing it's getting filtered through a bunch of soon to be obsolete lenses. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's really going to be pretty fun once people they start to see that, oh wait, no, here's what this means in this new environment where these assumptions have to be relearned as the rules themselves have of course been rewritten. One example I keep thinking of the top of my head is just along the objective control, just what that means on a practical level, because they've changed the size of the objectives themselves, right? And they're often around kind of a point which is no longer a fixed immaterial point in space, but it's something. So you are literally going to have a lot less room to work with to get guys on there to establish this OC, and so that number starts to matter. And you see casually little war scrolls and stuff like 5 or 10 sprinkled on there, and then you couldn't get that before by edging on with a monster. So now those
Hmm.
debuff effects are going to be crazy, and I know that I never would have thought of that in the same way when I had all that space to work with off like a 6-inch aura from objective.
Yeah. And then you think of like, okay, well, because with the 6 inch like objectives, you would be able to toe in and swing games wildly if you played it correctly, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, from either pile-ins to different areas, or like creating an opening for yourself through shooting that you could then like slingshot yourself with one charge into one area, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And that would get you on an objective. Well, now, anytime you charge, if your opponent has two command points, they can countercharge and effectively take that objective back, right? So
Oh,
like
exactly.
there's so much interplay that I think is it almost feels like the game is going to be um, just pure chaos sometimes when I'm thinking about like how how tournaments will shape up, at least for like the first three or four tournaments that I go to. I know it's going to be absolute chaos. And that's not even
Oh,
just
it'll
like
be nuts. It'll
people
be nuts.
remembering rules or anything, but it's like all of these people are going to coalesce with these different opinions about how a new edition works. And obviously, there's going to be, webless and dominant opinions, but like, where's the counter meta going to be? What is going to happen there? Like, are we going to see like a ton of anti-charge lists or a ton of anti-charge, anti-hero lists? Or are we going to see just a ton of min max? I there's a couple of people who are just like, no, hordes are now just going to win the game, and it's like, I don't know, man. I really don't know. You put all your points into one big horde, then yeah, it'll get on an objective, but you put all your points into that one horde, and now it can just be slowly countercharged to death or something, right?
But that's so true, and like anyone who is thinking of it, really, that's this main point of your 3.0 brain is showing is that yes, it might be like a game killer, but have they considered like the counter charge, the fact that they can charge with anything and be strung out and be countercharged and it's pinned in two directions. All it
Mm-hmm.
takes is one unit in the wings ready, and it can stop those objective sneak-ons, but it can also put people in really weird positions to fight.
Yeah, and then like, what does a screen even look like now that you only have a half inch coherency, right? Like
Yeah.
screens for a lot of armies, what with 10 models on a 40 mil base,
Mm-hmm.
for Stormcast, like what does that even look like? That's doubled up for most of the units, unless the
Yeah.
unit size changes. So like
When you think
a
about
lot,
it, we'll continue. Mm-hmm.
a lot of it just seems like there's a lot of things that we just don't know in the majority of people from play experience, which is going to be
It's
interesting
it's
to
so
see that
true.
unfold. But go
And
ahead.
really, I guess very much in line with the idea of like how much ahead of time has it been worth trying to divine all these things through like a lot of exceptionally time consuming digging.
Hmm.
Has that been worthwhile? Well, I mean, taking a lot of effort before to cobble together kind of a murky look at this, which is quite suspect. And now it's pretty easy just to start getting a better feel for it. Where ultimately it'll all culminate and let's just get our hands in that rule book. And the moment I was describing earlier, reading it and having a very clear picture where more is going to click, and then playing a few games to finally get there entirely.
Well, and for another, just not completely unrelated, but that good old, uh, uh, first book smell. I don't know if you still get joy out of that, but cracking open a new
Oh yeah,
book, that, oh, fresh
that's it's
ink,
so true.
fresh
That's going to be
ink.
an always strikes last, official recommendation. Everybody out there, the listenerverse, when you get your copy of the rule book, attached as it no likely will be to a very big box of models for factions you may or not even want to play. Definitely like take a moment, like take the precious rulebook nestled within that cave of plastic, added to our walls and piles of shame, and just like crack it open, let its fumes of newness waft over you. That new bookstore Games Workshop smell. Take a moment to appreciate. I know I'll be doing it, and it is
Yeah,
pretty distinctive, Matt. You only get that in a couple places.
yeah. It's beyond rare in the world really today, unless you're an avid book reader, right?
True,
Which
true.
somebody who always wanted to work in print when I went to design school, it's kind of the secret joy of life is just cracking a book open, seeing how they went nuts on their gutters, and
Hmm.
how many widows there are in the book, seeing if I can count those. Just there's a little bit of design terminology for y'all there that you didn't need really when it comes down to it.
Oh,
But this
only
is
on
always
always strikes
strikes
late,
late.
my friends. That's right.
But
Oh man.
yeah, it's I think and we started this we started championing this quite a couple of months back, but like we're old enough where it's like, yeah, we've seen a couple of editions of different games come and go.
Hmm.
And it's like, you guys, you have fun with that. We're gonna be Apple. We're gonna let everybody else figure it out, freak out, stumble and fail, and we'll just watch. And then when it's our time to play the game, we'll play the game.
That's true. That's true. But of course, having said that, there are a couple of spicy things maybe jumped out of this, right? And I think maybe now is finally the time to talk about
Yeah,
a bit of those things that have gotten us excited in terms of just like rules brain. Even if it turns out that there's some interaction which makes it less crazy later, but what's gotten our attention? Maybe we kind of run through a few of those anecdotally because I think that'll be kind of fun.
lay it on me. What's your starter? What's the thing that's got you most excited so far?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a couple things floating out there, but probably the biggest one, which I was found enamoring and I'm kind of excited about, are some of the rules to, of course, the faction that I am currently playing most, the Slaves to Darkness, where between a combination of like the kind of the preview article I did on the Warhammer community and some of the stuff floating out there, even like the Gunharm article on the on the faction pack, I do like some of the changes done to some of the war scrolls, and most specifically, the new possibilities unlocked by how they've reworked the Eye of the Gods table, like mechanic, for the army, which is just so fun to me
Hmm.
because they've updated it from a thing which would affect heroes really primarily, and then occasionally units if they happen to be undivided marked only, with some sort of unreliable swing effects. And they've sort of made a table which is extremely reliable in producing a few extremely good effects, which any unit would want, at least in my 3.0
Hmm.
brain. I'm pretty sure it's not changed. And they've even provided a bunch of really cool ways to get those and cheat out more of those results. And I'm excited to kind of like turn that into sort of an engine with some of my army builds to create really powerful like army units, which are kind of acting the way you'd expect a group of chaos warriors, who are gathering the attention of the gods to act. And to be more specific on it, they've changed things up so that whenever any unit of yours destroys an enemy unit, any size, could be one model, or two, or it could be 30, they get a roll in the Eye of the Gods table that particular turn. And the roll is basically a one does nothing, but no real negative effect anymore. And 2 to 5 do specific effects, and 6 lets you pick whatever effect you want. And the ones in that sweet 2 to 5 spot are basically a +1 to hit forever to just make you a better unit. They're
Hmm.
a feel no pain aura, which starts out as 6, and if you already have a 6, turns into a 5.
Which
They
is
are
very
a
good right now.
very good. They are a heal 3 wounds, which is good if you're a monster, multi-wound beastie, and not so great if you're just like a horde of marauders or something, but still. And all importantly, a one additional round in all your weapon profiles. you know, result. And they've noted that these things are all cumulative. So you can stack up the rend like an old Beastman, player, or you can get a unit to a 5 up feel no pain pretty quickly. And it's not that hard to do it because you think if there's a result that you like in a table like that, you have a 1 in 3 chance every time you roll a dice of getting it because the 6 that you pick it, and there's one dice in that table that is just going to be it. And I am excited about that. So that was like layer one of me having my brain, Matt, sort of go, ooh, this is different, but in a good way. And I'm kind of excited about that, right?
Yeah.
So hold on to that and then realize that they've updated the Demon Prince to be a lot better in terms of
Yeah.
sheer hittiness. Like, I mean, I think he had like 3 damage attacks and some stuff on there. Like at least on paper, the sort of thing to make you say, okay, he's maybe worth playing with now in a way he definitely wasn't, to the same degree. Even the latter days of third, they kept trying to make him better. But critically, for this kind of combo talk, that's kind of gets the brain moving. They gave him an ability where he can just sort of, in your hero phase, say, "Hey, I'm a living avatar of this god's love and will, and I see a unit nearby me who is marked with the same mark I have. How about you just get a free roll of the Eye of God stable right now? Go for it." Uh, so if you had a unit you really wanted to be great, don't see why you wouldn't have one of these guys always parked nearby and sort of guarantee a free roll at the table, or two. Maybe it's a thing to possibly do twice. And you combine that with the natural progression of that unit doing things because it's so unlocked now. You can get crazy Chosen. You can get crazy Varangard. You can get crazy Marauders. It's or
Yeah.
nights. It's going to be really fun. And so that kind of got me thinking when I was looking at the rules. That was my big one. How about yourself?
Yeah. I mean, um, I really like that they moved to the Eye of the Gods table for not just banners, right? Because it was previously if you have banners, right, and like certain things, but not
Yeah.
everything. It was heroes, banners, um,
And
something else.
undivided units. Like
Yeah.
if you were a unit that had the mark, and you were undivided, that allowed you to sort of unlock the Eye of the Gods table and start doing like the graduated thing. But other than that, like if you were a marked unit of any type, or
Hmm.
you wouldn't get any real opportunity to do it. And if you didn't have a mark, it wouldn't matter at all. It was just sort of like, okay, cool. I'm in chaos, but this doesn't affect me. This wildness of the gods. And that kind of led to sort of those moments where you would have a unit which you get like a free roll on the table, but that was it for them. Like chosen with a mark of a god. You got one roll on the table, which might make them spicy. But if they weren't undivided, they weren't kind of like go do a cool thing and progress that.
Which is really funny because the only way I was playing Slaves to Darkness was Cobless Undivided towards the end in the first place because I was running that all Therodon army um, when I was playing in third
Oh yeah,
for
that's right. That's right.
pretty much the entirety. And so the yeah, the funny thing is like I was already experiencing that. So to me, when I read that article, I was like, well, this doesn't change much for me. I'm already doing this. And then I was like, wait a minute. I'm the edge case here. Um and so I actually really like it because now it seems like the unlock units thing is gone. So my Therodons, regardless of how good they'll actually be, um, they're there's going to be a lot less work. It's actually a lot less of a hurdle for me to move over. And I'll be playing Slaves to Darkness at least to learn the game, I think, because I've been working on that Famir army for a little while now,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they're essentially a proxy for that all Therodon army, and I thought that'd just be a cool thing to do, um,
Oh,
with all those
100%.
models that I have. So yeah, I'm excited about that. I think, and I know I'm gonna like derail this a little bit, but I was kind of disappointed with the Goonhammer articles, and even well, actually, I feel like the Warhammer community article was much better. Um, but that's specifically because the Goonhammer article went into the units that you see in a lot of top medalists, which was, I think it was Be'lakor, right?
Hmm.
And Varangard, I think is what they were talking about in the Goonhammer article for them. Um,
Yeah, they mentioned it, but it was. I mean, it's funny you speak of that. It was an interesting, like
it was so
slight level
light.
deeper, but not like, not yeah, not like a full reveal or anything. And I felt like some of those articles were treating their subject matter differently. Call it kind of follow the same pattern, but some would kind of get a bit more in depth with the war scrolls they were talking about, and it could be more detailed. And some would be like, and these guys are still really good, or they hit like a ton of bricks. Moving on, and it'd be like one of the three or four things that highlight. So
Yeah,
I did
yeah,
feel that like it was almost like you felt like you dropped to the bottom, like the false bottom, but there's only like 6 inches more water, so you haven't exactly plunged quite yet.
yeah. It felt like there were some of them that that website specifically was just writing to get through like some of those armies, and there were others where they're like
Hmm.
clearly excited about it. Like the first one that I think, or the first article I think I read from them was about the Gloomspike Gits
Hmm.
upcoming release, and they were pretty excited. They even talked a tiny bit about spiders, which was cool.
It's true. You could tell with that one that he was a big fan of like playing with the trolls, doing
Yep,
some drugs type stuff. So like
Trog
they
Dog.
were actually waiting to do this versus maybe someone else got assigned it and they're like, oh, I'm writing on this faction. I don't really care, but let me get through it. Here's the template.
Yeah,
Check the box. Still, not to knock it. I know there's a lot to go through, and it's kind of fun to have them to read. It's just, I think I'm right there with it. It didn't give me all the information I need. I could still be surprised by something I read in a faction pack or see in a granny or
yeah.
scroll image.
Which is nice in and of itself. I think for
Cool.
me, like as much as I really wanted to, like I don't play the normal units, I guess, right? So I don't go out of my way to play. I just finally got Farangard for the first time since they've come out. I actually have some of the models, um,
Are
for the
these like
first time.
the physical models, or like
Yeah.
you're not even using them? Yeah, because it's probably because you bought the Abraxias there in Spear, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Um,
Yep, totally fair.
and so it's like, so like for me, the specific models that have been called out from a lot of like the reveal stuff is like, well, that's cool, but like that's stuff that I don't enjoy playing, right?
That's a
Um,
pretty fair thing. It's like you're not seeing the cool off the wall picks that you want. You're not seeing like your all chariots or your
mhm. Yeah,
your
none of
edgy kind of thing.
so it's interesting because like to that effect, the articles that have really interested me are the Warhammer community ones that have come out. And now that we're kind of at the stage where I'm jonesing, I've actually gone back to read them.
Mhm.
Um, and so this is probably maybe going to come as a bit of a surprise, but the two armies that really stand out to me as ones that are going to be fun. Um, First one is a little bit more of a presumption on my part because I think they're
Mhm.
going. I think they're going to have the mechanics that I want to play with, that can, like, now that the puzzle's coming together, right? We've seen more
Hmm.
of like how the actual game plays, and we've seen people use counter charges, yada yada yada.
Hmm.
So one of the rules out there, and again, thanks to Warhammer Weekly for like having an amazing breakdown of a lot of these rules, and like, I have the reading comprehension problem, so like when it comes down to like wordings of rules, like I will obviously get a lot of these wrong unless they're like super explicit and I learn by by failing. But they went through and talked about, one of the like keywords that people are going to need to be aware of is that if you redeploy, that also counts as a run. So if you redeploy and you have somebody that can run in charge, they're still available for a counter charge, right? So
Hmm.
what are the armies that I'm kind of expecting to see that? One of them probably Slanesh, and Slanesh, everything that has been released on it looks amazing, but out of
Hmm.
deference for one of our Patreons who's going to be moving back in this area, and I'm actually painting his Keeper of Secret right now. Um, I'm gonna hold off on Slanesh, even though I think it's probably gonna be one of the stronger, more fun books to play. Um,
Very fair.
but
Very fair.
but a close second for me that I think can abuse a lot of these, not abuse, but really like the army will lean into it, is Daughters of Cain. Like I feel like there's
Oh,
going to be a
yeah.
lot there where they're going to have the ability to retreat and charge. They're going to be a little bit faster on average than the rest of the armies. Like, but when I saw the not the Blood Sisters, the Archer Snake Ladies, and the
Hmm.
sheer volume of attacks that they have, like it seems like there's still going to be a high wound pool, and pretty deadly at range, which is something I'm actually kind of excited to lean into on this edition now that it's not overpowered. Like that's going to be a
Hmm.
nice test of, what's your target priority? How do you actually make this work with the rest of the game? Shooting has been toned down for the most part from what I've seen. And now that it's at the point where it won't feel like I'm shooting twice, one in my hero phase, and then I'm clearing something, clearing this, and I'm clearing that. Like I'm
Hmm.
finally finishing up my Daughters of Cain to get them ready because they're going to be fast. They're going to be a glass cannon. I'm going to be playing essentially Dark Eldar in
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun.
in Age of Sigmar, which is a huge, huge love for me. Um,
Well,
and then
that's gonna be a neat thing right there, man. I think.
yeah, like I feel like there's going to be a lot of like nuance, a lot of nuance that's going to be really fun to get to learn in the game. And there are going to be ones that I'm going to probably play intermittently after I kind of get the game down with the Slaves to Darkness army. That being said, one of the other things that kind of excited me was the fact that the Dark Oath preview that they had
Hmm.
actually felt like they were keeping a lot of those original rules from the War
Oh,
Scroll.
I was happy about that too. It felt like they had decided quite pointedly not to change all the cool stuff they just released about this army. But
Hmm.
I cannot wait to read some of the, rule war scrolls that they haven't gotten to, if we can even call them that anymore, to make sure they all look and still kind
Yeah,
of click the same.
what are we calling them now? Battle profiles? Is that what they are? Is that what they're calling them? I don't know. Kids
Is
these
it
days.
battle scroll? Yeah, rather war scroll. I think it is still a scroll, but it is one of those things where like you kind of hold your breath on the ones you haven't quite viewed or gotten. Like it's because a little change on one of those can make a big difference. Like I mean, I know that Bellicor preview they did, right? Like they were talking, you were kind of joking about the fact that he still had what he had. They kind of made him distinctive and like turned into a completely different unit.
Hmm.
And there's places where that can happen, or the subtle things can make like a massive difference. I think so. I'm curious to see kind of all of it and to kind of get into reading them one by one and seeing like what possibilities open up there. I know even like something like the Chaos Knights going 4 wounds has been compelling to me as like oh wow, it's kind of crazy now.
Oh yeah. Like they finally feel like they figured them out, even just from the profile. But again, that's coming from like the context of third, where like knights never really felt figured out to me in
Yep.
Age of Sigmar. Like they either had too few wounds, their saves weren't good, or they hit on a 4+, which come on, these are like the pinnacle of warriors, right? Like they should be
Hmm.
better than every human out there.
It's
And they were
absolutely
getting
true.
just trounced by like were they the Cavaliers?
Hmm.
Like
Yeah. The true
er,
elite, the human knights who look miserable.
yeah. I remember just looking at that war scroll and being like, wow, that's a great what what? That's what a Chaos Knight should be. I don't care if they
Hmm.
get like Mark of Nurgle and they're like -1, you know, to wound or whatever. Like they should just have base stats that are awesome. And it seems like
Yeah,
they're
and
getting
that
that.
feeling of a nightmarish cavalry wave being the thing you should fear. Yeah, that's 100% for sure with the way the Cavaliers and the Marshall drops, no doubt.
Hmm. Yeah. So it's been kind of interesting seeing the local backlash about the Cavaliers. But it's stuff like that. I kind of have a little bit. I feel like I'm almost putting too much faith into the game at the moment that they've got it right. But at the same time, since we're losing like true allies, um, like there's just more room for balance, I think. And that gives me a little bit of hope on it, which,
Oh,
always
very
always
much
good to
so.
walk into an edition.
Well, I guess kind of using that as a springboard, we should talk about what our kind of like last minute hobby projects are here as we wait for the big drop. I mean, like with all that in mind, what have you been working on?
Oh, I mean, so continuing on with the Famir, right? So,
Mhm.
for anybody who's just dropping in, I know I haven't really talked about them that much. If you're on a Discord, you'll be able to see a lot of the process photos that I've kind of taken along the way, which admittedly, I need to get a photography setup going. No excuse at this point, but. Um, yeah, I'm actually at the point where I'm kind of branching out and trying to figure out what I'm going to do
Mhm.
for the Dark Oath equivalent. Um, but essentially, the idea of this Famir army, again, for newer listeners, is that it's going to be kind of a proxy army. Um, as I'm learning, um, the new edition, I have uh, let let's just be honest, entirely too many miniatures that have been legended, and and they all just happen to be on 50 mil bases. So uh, they are going to proxy as Ogroid Therodons from Slave to Darkness, and I've just kind of been filling them out. They've got like they're from the swamp. They're swamp wizard lizards. So a lot of what I've been doing is just trying to make them as display board worthy as possible.
Nice.
And then branching out into like, what are the monsters that would, come with these Celtic lizard wizards into the swamp, right? So kind of like doing the full, looking for models that I either have to repurpose that, don't really get any love currently, or sourcing the models that I need that look like they're creatures that high fantasy creatures that would have grown up in a bog. So I've got like a mud gullet that I can use depending on how I
Hmm.
how I base it for like oh, what are they called with the phlegm cannon?
The
What's
phlegm
the big
cannon.
monster? Yeah, it's the big monster that nobody uses, but it's always terrifying whenever it's been used. Hold on, let me pull this guy up because I forget his name every time. Um,
Oh, are you talking about the giant based it's like the demon engine thing that you're talking about now.
yeah, but it's got no demon engine. It's like the demon version of a Defiler from 40K. The
Yeah.
Soul Grinder. Yeah.
Yeah, the Soul Grinder, like literally I'd never seen one on a four just Sigmar tabletop. That's why I said a profile.
There was I remember mid to late second edition, there was a tournament where somebody brought three of them and just pummeled everybody because they had super good range, higher rend, even if they're like, and then ways to buff them to get um, more accuracy. And I haven't seen him since, but I got this awesome model. And again, if you're on the Discord, you can see it. It's just this giant tentacled like blob of a beast that looks like it fell out of the mud. That I'm gonna be able to use as a proxy for that, or anything large really that I need to. Um,
That's a lot of fun. So you're working on the Fimir and kind of getting them ready for Therodon land, and then they're kind of expanding into what could be like the rest of the swamp for the rest of the range.
Yeah, and then in addition to that, I'm just kind of like filling out like the things that I think will be interesting to me in the way that the game is going to shape out, right? Like I actually went and redistributed my display cases and put the armies back in storage that I didn't think I'd be interested in playing so far. So I pulled out my Zinch as well. I think Zinch are going to be a lot of fun. I just have an inkling that they're going to be fun because of the Warhammer community article that kind of like teased the shooting aspect, right? The flame, uh, whatever, the soul flame or whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean there. It's stuff might be kind of interesting with those rules.
Yeah, and
Glimmers.
I haven't seen anything on the burning chariots, but I do happen to be a madman and have six of them. Uh, so like I'm gonna try and put them to good use at some point. But so with those, pulling them out of the case, doing the little touch ups, like I feel like
Hmm.
so often, and we've talked about this a couple of times. So often we get the army to where we think it looks okay. I'm not going to be ashamed of this if I put it on a table at a tournament, right? Well,
Hmm.
I feel like I've gone through so many armies and done that, and they're kind of at that point. But now I can be like, okay, these are armies that I want to play, or that I think are going to be fun to play. Let's use that as an excuse to get these up to a higher standard of painting for myself. Um, and
That's a fair way to go. I mean,
yeah,
I can respect that. I think my journey with it has been, at least recently, with this prepping for fourth or whatever, as we prepping as we call it, but more just like killing time and having fun with some painting is trying to second guess a little bit what might be interesting unit, at least from the Slaves of Darkness context, haven't already gotten to, and then trying to say, okay, well, let's work on that. No real rush, maybe I'm wrong, but get a couple more things I can just grab off the shelf when the time is ready. And I think my painting focus has been still on the looks good, fun, but doesn't have to be my masterwork. Quite yes, yeah, with that.
I mean, I've actually, so with Famir, I'm trying to do that and failing utterly, just because Forge World models
Mm-hmm.
suck to paint. I'll straight up say it. Like they're so angular and like they're lovely models, but there is just something about that old Forge World resin that just feels like you're painting all sharp angles. And I don't know
It,
why.
it's true. I mean, I've always had that experience as well. I mean, you undercoat it, you treat it the same way, but the material itself just doesn't take the paint as well. And it
Yeah.
almost makes it look a bit more like washed out and dulled and on the same like plastic or metal model with the same undercoats and all that, at least in my experience.
No, exactly. Like perfect call out. Like I like at that point it's like even dry brushing feels like it's dulled. Like if you dry brush white on it, it feels like you've just dry brushed ivory.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know what it is about it. I mean, it should be the same.
yeah.
it's, it's true. You're of course going through so many of them with your familiars, so that's a hats off to your journey. On my side, the ones that I've been kind of playing around with recently is I have a couple like little guys to get done, like one of the spells for chaos, another chaos lord, but and aspirations of maybe doing the new terrain piece because why not? It's fun.
Oh
But I've
yeah.
been working, yeah, but I've been working on my sixth variant guard, and they're actually almost done, or it's almost tabletop done. I need to like kind of complete the path. But I've been doing them, and this is I think something Miles would appreciate, one at a time because they're all like riding different sort of beasts, like the Griffhounds or like the Tracker lines, and they're kind of converted, you know, uh,
Oh yeah.
like Vanguard that I'd sort of gotten from him and I made some additions to myself. And I've kind of been painting them individually with slightly different like mount color combinations and armor combinations and things to try to capture that like idea that these Vanguard really would be coming from different places. That wouldn't all just be like, we are the unit that grew up together to become the Vanguard. They would be pretty individual. And so I've been sort of jokingly calling them my Saturday morning cartoon, breakfast cereal box, Vanguard, because they're like a little bit more distinctive. But it's been for the most part coming together well. And I have five of the six to a point where they're mostly all like their key colors and everything blocked in and done. There maybe some detail work and touch ups left. And just one guy who has still like his mount painted for the most part and some other stuff needs to have his armor and details done. But after that, there'll be like a really interesting eye popping unit. I'll finally be able to like bring them on the table as a fully painted thing, should I want to, which I think will be fun, especially when I can start showing everyone in the Discord like what these guys are looking like. Hint, hint. There's a guy with like the pink style armor that my chosen have. There's another one with bright yellow armor, which is really
Nice. So
popping
like
and somehow working.
full He-Man style, like just out there.
A little bit, but making it work with the chaos and some of the details I'll work in, like red glowing eyes or whatever. We'll make that
Nice.
tied together even better. But my color palette has, I think, made it popping and distinct. Like a individual model, but it still kind of works as a unit because they're all callback different units in the army.
It's funny that you because those are Miles, all ones that he gave you, right?
Yep, yep. He'd given me these Vanguard. He converted up at some point in the past where they are his rendition of it because he didn't, I think, like the original Vanguard models, the current ones that come in the Abraxia box, an opinion which I share, by the way. So
They're
this
so
was a match
small.
made in heaven. Yeah, they're just so small and they're meant to be so crazy, and the mounts, mouths, and some of their details always look a little derpy to me. And
Hmm.
so when I got some of these models that he sort of loaned me and it permanently gave me, eventually, into my collection and uncovered them from their shredded paper tomb. I kind of dig it. I did some additional conversions to finish off where they weren't quite there, but like six Varangard, all very unique, really interesting looking combinations of like these what you would think of as you know uh Stormcast Eternals mounts, but with like very chaos riders, and all of a sudden it seems like you can see Vanguard that came from somewhere, and that was fun.
Yeah, that's super rad. I'm gonna be excited to see those because I remember when he used those against me. uh, at, at least once to test them out. Um, but it's funny
Yeah.
that it's that same unit because that actually inspired me to. I think if I remember this correctly, I think after that game because that was one of the backyard games that
Mhm.
we had. I was like, you know what? Because I had a bunch of them as well, but I'm using them for my Stormcast army. Um,
Mhm.
is what they were. So I figured I'd just paint one of them like his cat, so that every
Mhm.
time that I brought them, the like he wouldn't want to kill them because he'd be killing his cat. So one of them is painted, and I'm sorry I can't remember your name, Kitty.
Was it Binks
Like
or
his
Freya?
I think it is Freya. Yeah. Uh, the
Uh,
um, the modeled golden cat.
yep. I have a Mind Sears Phalanx painted like Freya.
That's great.
Uh, Too
Yeah,
funny. Well,
that sounds like quite a task. I mean, it's
yeah,
those
it's
are
been a
not
weird
easy
journey.
models to paint either. Like, I don't know why.
They're
Because
really
maybe they're
not.
because they're
They're
so
really not.
smooth.
Mhm. That's been part of it. For me, I think the painting challenge has also been partially sort of how they came to me because in this particular army acquisition, this unit was at like a very what do I do with you kind of state of like painting and model assembly because some of the elements were already base coated in some sort of color or armor or thing to a degree. Many of them were
Mhm.
not or undercoated. They were like undercoated maybe even in different ways, if undercoated at all. And
Yeah,
then, of course, this meant that, well, do I want to repaint it entirely? Do I want to go like re-undercoat the whole thing and start from scratch? Do I want to keep and work it in? And I didn't really want to lose the time. I thought I'd take it as a inspiration to kind of try different techniques or to work in like these different themes, right, for the individual model. But that meant that it hasn't been like I'm color blocking everything for six guys. It's been like I have to figure out what to do with each guy and tackle the individual challenges of like, well, has he been properly base coated? Do I need to go in and like, do some slap chop style dry brushing to both give him a primer and then make sure there's some shadows before I start playing around with like metals and contrast inks and highlights and all that? Or is he ready to go? With most of this bird already done with just some detail work left. And it's been a thing which has sort of broken up my concentration and how I've approached it. But it's been fun.
oh, that's cool. I mean, it actually kind of like helps with the lore, right? Because they're all individually like warlords of their own right, right? So
Oh,
like
absolutely. So
you're almost treating them as heroes um, in the way that they're broken up. So that's kind of cool. Like you get a little bit of storytelling in the model, whether or not it was intentional from the outset, but that's always
yeah,
cool.
thanks, Matt. Yeah, I'm excited to show them up when they're done. So you'll definitely see them kicking around. And dear listeners, you'll see them at the table, I'm sure, as a kind of experimenter or have them kicking around. The last time I ran one of our Always Strikes last tournaments, up here in the Northeast, I brought them as sort of my army to play if I was going to be the ringer or if there was not a number of people I wanted to register and play. And something which would be a little bit more manageable to push around the tabletop than like dark oath hordes or huge numbers of guys and with a small footprint, including them. And they were fun. That was an unpainted variation of these same guys, but I can see them having a similar role in the future for such things.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of fun, I think, as we move forward. Um, and and just all of what I've seen so far is it's finally got me ready to start getting hyped, right? I'm finally at that spot.
Yeah, same here.
And
Same
like
here.
not wanting
I
to play a
actually
game of third at all.
exactly. It's like, no, we're done with third. Let's get ready for fourth. And fourth brain now is I know I have my copy of Skaven Tide, ordered to get all the cool stuff and have some of those models, which I tell myself I'll use someday. But really get the rule book and then start jumping in with all the bells and whistles for the game, the match play missions. So it's gonna be a wild ride. And actually, just incidentally, because no one knows what's up and what's down this new edition, but we got to figure out somehow. If you are in the Northeast, you want to come join us for the third Always Strikes Last tournament at TJ's in Milford. We're going to be hosting one on the 27th of July, which is going to be our first fourth edition tournament. One day RTT. Look it up on Best Coast Pairings as per usual. Sign up there, but should be capped at about 24 players, and we're gonna have a blast just kind of figuring it out. I'll probably be TOing and playing in it because I got to do it myself, but we'll be having a real fun time there. So come by if you're able to. Figure to plug that before I forget that this is indeed our podcast about this sort of thing. We are Always Strikes Last, and we should probably promote our own tournament.
Yeah, I have mine coming up way later. I'll start promoting it. But that'll be you should actually, the dice should get there for you by then. So
Oh,
for those of
absolutely. Yeah.
you that are interested in that tournament and you get to play Jack, he should have our very own, thank you, Baron of Dice, uh,
Thank you,
branded,
Benedice. Yeah,
always strikes last dice, which
that's
are
very true. And
super rad.
uh, I don't want to spoil them too much, Matt, but I do have to say that I will likely be getting those little bags that people sometimes use to distribute drugs, the ones that are plastic. And I'll probably give 2 dice to each participant as a thank you and a welcome to the Always Strikes Last community, since, of course, we're the sponsor of the tournament.
Yeah, and and since you gotten it this far, anybody who's listening, if you do want to, well, we can do a plug right now. Why don't we do a plug?
Oh,
Let's
yeah,
do a
let's
plug.
do some plugs.
So, we do have a Patreon. We have several different, you know, layers, tiers. Uh, what would you call it? Uh, Particular flavors of patronage that you can sign up for if you want.
Yes, yes. The levels of devotion,
Mhm.
commitments to the patrony or
Can
patronage.
cost you a cup of coffee, or if you're insane, you can get, you can go ham and you'll get a custom model by one of us.
Yeah, and
Not
everything in
saying that
between.
anybody will ever get that, but if you ever want some custom conversions, you can always even just join at the basic level, which I'm not going to remember the name of right now, but you can that will give you a Discord access. We have a bunch of really good players in there, um, as well as really good painters, converters, and you can take a look at some of our work. You can get critique on lists. Miles, who has just finished Team Worlds, which we haven't even gotten to in this episode, can give you some honest coach feedback, coach level feedback, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
always available there.
and we also have a merch page, alwaysstrikeslast.com, which that helps to keep us on the interwebs.
On the airwaves doing a thing, yeah. So yeah, certainly to that point, guys, no plug would be complete without the like, subscribe, continue joining if you're interested in being part of that community, or even taking the deep dive and getting some custom converted miniature, which I can only say, if it's Matt, will be worthy of its own OnlyFans. And you know, there's a lot of good there. But the merch is cool, vetted by many people actually wear clothing so they want to inhabit the world in. So there's there's something for everybody, and we appreciate it if any of those things appeal to you. Yeah, I guess beyond all that, some fun stuff ahead, Matt. I think we've probably come to a reasonably good ending point, for our Always Strikes Late, but we can sort of allude to the fact that next episode we'll have Miles back with us, resuming our normal form with a triumvirate, and we can go about talking about World and what the heck happened there, maybe with a special guest.
Yeah, it sounds like there was a lot of fun, lot of fun drama as well, from what I hear about
Yes, indeed.
players. Um, but and a lot of not so fun drama. But we'll have a nice inside scoop. Obviously, again, captain of Team Ireland. And before we do go, that was, what was it? Oh no, I closed it.
You closed it.
Yeah,
Was it
I
topic or a
closed.
web page?
No, I think, well, I mean, you can always like and subscribe, people. I don't need to give you any more pitches. I think we just pitched the hell out of that pitch, right?
We pitched the hell out of that
Oh,
pitch. the
Yeah, I
show
wanted to
notes.
congrats Team Denmark, right? So apparently they took it
That's right.
um, with France and then England coming in second and third, respectively. So it sounds like, from what I heard, it's it was a very competitive event this year. But I gotta say, before we do come to that good place, guys, figure out how to promote this better because I had to go to Twitter, and nobody wants to go to Twitter. Nobody's Xing. It's
Oh
horrible over
yeah.
there. I had to go to Twitter to find
I'm gonna
leads.
take up this cause, take up this torch. It's such a huge deal, you know, in like the Warhammer world of like competitive international play. And sometimes it really does seem hard to know about it the way you want to know about it. The kind of our major event or one of our major events.
Yeah.
So
Do better. Do better, y'all. Um, but yeah, so do you think we've come to a good place? I think we're at a good
I think
place.
so. I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think our listeners have followed with us, hopefully to this point on our meandering always strikes late journey. Hopefully enjoyed a little bit of it. So guys, thanks everyone out there, you know, guys, ladies, for sticking with us at this point. And looking forward to catch up with you next time as we continue into Fourth Land with some recaps on Worlds before we jump into the new edition full swing.
So much excitement. So much.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And remember, if you gotta strike late, strike it
You're
last.
striking that, or you're striking first, depending on whether you're moving, all the way around the boat, right?
That's true. One left, one
Clocks,
right.
clocks right twice a day.